أعوذ بالله السميع العليم من الشيطان اللعين الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين. الحمد لله والحمد حقه كما يستحقه حمدا كثيرا. وأعوذ به من شر نفسي إن النفس لأمارة بالسوء إلا ما رحم ربي. والصلاة والسلام على أشرف الخلق وخاتم الأنبياء وسيد المرسلين حبيب إله العالمين سيدنا وحبيب قلوبنا وشفيع ذنوبنا أبي القاسم المصطفى محمد. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد وعلى أهل بيته الطيبين الطاهرين المعصومين المطهرين المكرمين. قال الله العظيم في كتابه الكريم وهو أحسن القائلين وأصدق الصادقين: بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. ومن يطع الله والرسول فأولئك مع الذين أنعم الله عليهم من النبيين والصديقين والشهداء والصالحين وحسن أولئك رفيقا. آمنا بالله. صدق الله العلي العظيم. For the purification of the souls, the enlightenment of the hearts, the acceptance of the deeds, and for the hastening of the reappearance of the awaited Saviour, Ajjalallahu Ta'ala Farajahu Sharif, enlighten your souls, purify your hearts and the atmosphere with the recitation of salawat upon Muhammad wa Ali Muhammad. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa Ali Muhammad. Respected elders, sisters and brothers, Salamun alaykum wa rahmatullahi ta'ala wa barakatuh. Lady Hameeda was the wife of Imam As-Sadiq and the mother of Imam Musa ibn Ja'far Al-Kadhim salawatullahi wa salamuhu alayhim ajma'een. And Hameeda was a brilliant individual amongst the mothers of the Ahlulbayt, praised by Ali Muhammad themselves. The study of the life of Hameeda and the other mothers of the Ahlulbayt brings forth many lessons for you and I. Number one, we are honoring Ali Muhammad. We are indeed placing happiness in the lives of the Imams alayhimus salam in the hearts, in the recognition that we're remembering those that were beloved to them. Number two, the historical analysis of the lives of the likes of Hameeda and, for example, Farwa, and tomorrow, inshallah, Tuktam, Najma Khatun, and the other great ladies seeks to present to us lessons for both males and females. Hameeda was known as Al-Hameeda Al-Musaffat, the purified, chosen one. And she stands to be the first from the mothers of the Ahlul Bayt who is a slave, who is what? A servant. If we exclude Lady Shahrabanu, because she was an Iranian princess, a daughter of a king. This particular honorable individual was a person that's known as Ummul Ima, the mother of the slaves. Why? Because from Hameeda all the way towards the mother of the 12th Imam, all the mothers of the Ahlul Bayt were servants. Hameeda, the mother of Imam Musa ibn Ja'far, was the first amongst 5 of the mothers of the Ahlul Bayt were all slaves. Yes? And the Ahlul Bayt alayhum salam sought to eradicate the prejudice and the bias that exists. This racial tendencies that people used to exhibit, and they exhibit even today, was something that Ali Muhammad used to indeed work hard to stamp against, because they were the manifestations of the verses in the Quran that states, Inna akramakum indallahi atqakum, the best in the eyes of Allah and the most honorable are the ones who exhibit God consciousness, irrespective of color, creed, denomination, or indeed background. Hameeda, the mother of the 7th Imam, was from where? She was from North Africa. She is known to be either Hameeda al-Andalusiya, either from southern Spain, or more likely from the region of Berber. The Berber community, yes, used to live in North Africa, in countries like Morocco, Tunisia, Libya, Algeria. They were known what? As the Berbers. Now what happened was, by the year 90 after Hijrah, North Africa predominantly became Muslim due to the Islamic conquests. Imam Ja'far ibn Muhammad As-Sadiq salawatullahi wa salamu alayhi. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. had not married anyone, and people began to question Imam al-Baqir alayhi salam why his son Imam al-Sadiq is not married. In Al-Kafi, narrations are presented to us where they came to Imam al-Baqir and said, when will you marry your son al-Sadiq? When will he actually get married? He says, I am waiting for the right time. This, alongside many other narrations, are indicative of the fact that the choice and the selection of these honorable ladies was by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. It was not just random, it was not necessarily by luck, yes. It was all part of a plan of the Almighty, that these ladies would marry these holy individuals. They would carry and indeed be the wombs that indeed would be holding these honorable creations of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and His representatives. In Al-Kafi, we are told that Imam al-Baqir alayhi salam said that there is an individual who sells slave servants from Berber coming. And therefore, I'm going to send some of my companions to look for a lady and to purchase this lady from him. He gave this companion of his a bag containing some money. He said, this is sealed, don't open it. Yes, according to the riwayah. And when you go to this man, ask him about a particular lady by a following features. And Imam al-Baqir gives the features to one of his companions. This man goes, meets this individual from Berber, North Africa, who had come to wear Medina. And he says to him, do you have any slaves left? He says, I've sold all of them except two. They are sick. They are not to be sold. The man said, can I see them? So he calls them. These two ladies are bought. The companion of Imam al-Baqir looks at one of them and says, how much would you sell this lady? He says, 70 dinars. The man said, there is a bag of money. I don't know how much it contains, but this is what we can afford. The man says, very well. He takes the bag, opens it, counts how much money is inside. It's exactly 70 dinars. The individual, both of them are surprised. Then the man smiles, the person who's selling. He says, Subhanallah, yesterday I saw in my dream the Prophet of Islam telling me this is what's going to happen. That I'm going to sell this lady to what? To an individual who will indeed look after her. This lady, HAMEEDA, was then purchased. She was brought to Imam al-Baqir alayhi salam. Imam al-Baqir asked her, what is your name? She said, Ana HAMEEDA. My name is HAMEEDA. Imam alayhi salam then says a monumental line. He says, Hamidatun fi dunya, mahmuda fil akhirah. You are praised in this world, treasured in the afterlife. This was the beginning of the praise of Ali Muhammad towards this honorable lady. What happened thereafter was that Imam alayhi salam introduces her to Imam al-Sadiq, who freezes her and marries her. This was the practice of the Imams alayhim salam. Usually they would free the slaves first, then they would give them an option whether they wanted to get married or not. And HAMEEDA was given this option. She was what? Willing to marry the 6 holy Imam. Imam al-Baqir alayhi salam then mentions and asks her, he asks her, are you a virgin or not? She says that many a times when I was sold to people, men would want to get close to me, but something would happen. There would be an individual or an occurrence that would stop them from getting close to me. Thereafter, according to the riwayah, Imam al-Baqir said something brilliant about her. He said, HAMEEDA Sayyidatul Ima. This HAMEEDA is the master of all the slave ladies. Musaffatun min al-adnas. She is purified from impurities. Kasabikatul dhahab. Just like a bullion of gold. Bullion of gold means what? Means when the gold used to be purified to the extent that it was what? The most purified gold that exists at that time. Imam al-Baqir praised her and said, you are so purified, just like how the gold is indeed purified. Then he said, مَا زَالَتِ الْأَمْلَاكُ تَحْرِسُهَا. That the malaika continuously protected her, حَتَّى أُدِّيَتْ إِلَيْهِ, until she was given to me. كَرَامَةً مِّنَ اللَّهِ لِي وَالْحُجَّ بَعْدِي. This is a blessing from Allah to me and the representative of Allah after me. Yes. How amazing it is for a ma'soom to praise a non-ma'soom in such a way. Imam al-Baqir praising Hameeda, this honorable lady, this individual that I am sure 5 or 10 minutes ago, the vast majority of people here and the vast majority of people watching at home had never heard of in their lives. Yet Imam al-Baqir alayhi salam is praising her, is honoring her, yes? And she would marry whom? She would marry Imam al-Sadiq. The relationship between Hameeda and Imam al-Sadiq was brilliant and exceptional. Riwayat don't often tell us about the marital relationship of the Ahlulbayt with their wives. We don't have much, yes? Except Amir al-Mu'mineen and Sayyidatul Nisa. There are not many historical records that give us indication of the marriage details of these holy individuals, except Hameeda. Hameeda, riwayat tell us of the love that she had for Imam al-Sadiq and the love Imam al-Sadiq had for her. One example is given to us in Al-Kafi. Please pay attention to this. So you recognize the bond that existed, the special affinity between these two individuals in their marital life. In Al-Kafi, the sixth holy Imam comes forward and says, وَلَقَدْ آذَانِي أَكْلَ الْخَلِّ وَالزَّيْتِ. He says, I used to eat vinegar and olive oil, but this caused me pain in my stomach. حتى أن حميدة أمرت بدجاجة. Hameeda saw this. The moment she saw that I was in discomfort, I was in pain because of this food that I was eating, she made sure that a chicken is prepared for me. فشويت, and the chicken was grilled. فرجعت إلي نفسي. As a result, I became much better. As a result, I was cured from my what? From my illness. This points to the care, compassion, attention that Hameeda had for her husband. Because the Quran tells us, one of the characteristics of awliyaullah, the closer you are to Allah, the more compassionate and loving you are to your wife and your children. This is a fact, yes? The Prophet of Islam, Rasul al-A'zam wa Nabi al-Akram, Muhammad al-Mustafa sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, would ask Bilal, perform the adhan, Bilal. At one moment, there was not the time for salah. People gather in Masjid al-Nabawi, yes? He had one of his companions, Uthman ibn Maz'un, radwanullahi ta'ala alayh. He had not met his wife for a while. He was busy worshipping Allah. The Prophet sits on the minbar. He says to them, Ayyuhan nas, O people, khayrukum li ahlih. The best amongst you is the best with their family. Wa ana khayrukum li ahlih. And I am the best when it comes to my family, yes? The barometer is what? In the religion of Islam, many times you have people who exhibit religious characteristics. They are so-called mutadayyin, religious, yes? You'll find them indeed in Salatul Jama'ah, you'll find them going for ziyarah, you'll find them practicing. But at home, they are dictators. The way they treat their wife, the way they treat their children, similarly for the wife as well. This works both ways, isn't it? That the reflection of ibadah is the nature, the way we deal with each other. And I tell you, I was looking at the world record when it comes to longest marriage. A few years ago, they've passed away now, yes. There was a man by the name of Karam, yes, who was 107 years of age, and his wife was 100. Qatari, her name is. God knows why I've memorized their name, yes. The idea is that they were asked, they had the world record for the longest marriage, 87 years. 87 years they were married. So naturally, when you have people married for such a long time, you ask them, yes, you ask them, what is the recipe for success of your marriage? They were asked, what has made your marriage so long lasting? The wife said one word, chapati. Interesting. Someone asks, what do you mean chapati? Is this the recipe for success? She said, every time I baked and prepared the chapati, I would break it in half and give half for my husband. I always looked after him. We made each other laugh. Yes? We would ensure that what? We are comforts for each other. This is the Quranic concept, yes? وَجَعَلَ بَيْنَكُمْ مَوَدَّةً وَرَحْمَةً, isn't it? Because the narration of the Prophet of Islam says, مَنْ تَزَوَّجَ فَقَدْ أَحْرَزَ what? Most of you will say, نِصْفَ دِينَ, yes? You have completed half of your faith. But I'm not going to tell you something you've already heard. The narration says, مَنْ تَزَوَّجَ فَقَدْ أَحْرَزَ نِصْفَ السَّعَادَةِ. Anyone who gets married has attained half of happiness. Once there was one of the mu'mineen came to me after a majlis. He said, can I ask you about the authenticity of this narration? I said, why? He said, are you sure the Prophet said it? I said, why? He said, because for me, I think the Prophet said, مَنْ تَزَوَّجَ فَقَدْ أَحْرَزَ نِصْفَ الْكَآبَةِ. Whomsoever marries has attained half of depression. I said to him, brother, that's your marriage. Don't blame the narration of the Prophet. In the recognition that many people have not really grasped the essence and the beauty and the magnificence of this relationship that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says can continue in Akhirah, on the day of Qiyamah as well, isn't it? And that's why the lesson that is indeed emerging from the life of this great lady Hameeda is the care within the family setup. We are told that one of the things that Imam As-Sadiq alayhi salam did was ensure that she was amongst the best in terms of ulum, in terms of teachings of Ahlulbayt. She was also known as Faqiha, the jurist, the learned individual. In Al-Kafi we are told that one day someone came to Imam alayhi salam and said to him, what is the ruling of a child who's gone to Hajj? Do they do ihram? A baby, yes. Imam said, go to her, go to my wife, Hameeda. She will answer you. They came to Hameeda. Hameeda said to them, this is what you do. You, just like the elders wear ihram, you also remove all the clothes from the baby. And what? Wash the baby. Then what? Whatever you do as far as the rituals, someone does a niyaba, in other words, on behalf of the child. Yes. The rulings used to give, just like whom Farwa we spoke about yesterday, yes? She and Farwa would go towards Medina, disseminate the teachings, speak to people, answer people's questions. This was what? Clearly established as a characteristic in the life of this great lady. But of course, a monumental moment in the marriage of Imam As-Sadiq and Hameeda, peace be upon them, was the birth of Babul Hawa'ij, the seventh holy Imam, Imam Musa ibn Ja'far, salawatullahi wa salamuhu alayhi. We are told it was a year 128 after Hijrah, and it was the 7th of Safar, in an area known as Abwa. Those who were present when we discussed the life of Amina bint Wahab on the second night should know what Abwa is. Abwa is an area where the grave of Amina radwanullahi ta'ala alayha is. Yes? And so Imam As-Sadiq alayhi salam had a place there. Or he may have stopped on the way. The narration doesn't tell us. According to the riwayah, he was eating food with his whom? With his companions. All of a sudden someone came to him and said, your wife Hameeda is calling you because she's about to give birth. Imam left the food, he went. The companion said he came back a while later, delighted, joyful, very happy. Yes? And he gave people the what? He gave people the great news. He said, وَهَبَ اللَّهُ لِي غُلَامًا. Allah has given me a beautiful son. وَهُوَ خَيْرُ مَنْ بَرَأَ اللَّهُ. And he is amongst the greatest of God's creation. Yes. Then he said to his companions the details of the birth of Imam Al-Kadhim. He said, when Hameeda gave birth to him, yes, she told me, لَمَّا وَقَعَ مِنْ بَطْنِهَا وَقَعَ وَاضِعًا يَدَيْهِ عَلَى الْأَرْضِ رَافِعًا رَأْسَهُ إِلَى السَّمَاءِ. When he came out, yes, he placed his hands on the ground, yes, then he placed his hands onto the heavens. And when Hameeda said this to Imam As-Sadiq, Imam As-Sadiq said to her, this is indeed a sign that what? Every vicegerent of God does this. Innahal amara. He says, amaratun nabi. This is what happens from what? From each and every individual from the Ahlulbayt. This is a sign at the time of what? At the time of their birth, yes? And therefore, she would be an individual who would look after Imam Musa ibn Ja'far, plus his son, Muhammad al-Ma'ruf, plus two daughters that she had with Imam al-Sadiq alayhi salam, 4 children. But she paid special attention to Musa ibn Ja'far. How many times today we speak about the forbearance of the 7th Holy Imam, the patience of the 7th Holy Imam, the forgiveness of the 7th Holy Imam, how an amazing character he was. Credit also goes to his mother, no doubt, yes. Many a times we speak about the fada'il of Ahlulbayt. Don't forget the mothers of the Ahlulbayt. No doubt, a large proportion of it is due to the father, but the mother plays a huge role, isn't it? That when we speak about the forgiving nature of the 7th Holy Imam, story after story, that's why he was given the title Al-Kadhim. Look at the nurturing of his mother, HAMEEDA. Look at what, indeed, she went through in order to ensure that such a man would indeed come out and would be the great guide, representative of Allah, and what? An individual that guides people towards the path of salvation. She would live her life with the 6th Holy Imam in the best possible way, but she also endured hardship and difficulties. I tell you, what hardships she endured. We have narration. One day, Imam As-Sadiq alayhi salam with HAMEEDA, they were at home. Listen to this story. When she was at home, all of a sudden, someone rushes to the Imam and says, Yabna Rasulillah, they have burnt the house. We can see flames outside the house. And the flames are entering inside the house. Imam As-Sadiq then thereafter commands and orders his family, his wife, his children to what? To leave the room that they were in order to save their life, yes. And HAMEEDA had to see the burning of her own house. But it wasn't the first member of the Ahlulbayt who had to see their house burnt, isn't it? It was what? It was in reflection to what happened to Sayyidatun Nisa, Fatima. And of course, Imam As-Sadiq would be seen weeping, yes? He was asked later, is it because your house was burnt down by the enemies of Allah? He says, no, we are used to calamities. It was because I remembered that night, Sham Ghariba, when the ladies would jump and go from one tent to another, and their dresses would be what? Burnt, yes. HAMEEDA would see this, would remember the masa'ib of the Ahlul Bayt in this manner. But I tell you, there wasn't a musibah in the life of HAMEEDA more greater than losing her husband. Because interestingly, the riwayah tells us that she was so in a state of distress and grief. Abu Basir, the famous companion of the 6th Holy Imam, who was what? Who was blind, says that when Imam As-Sadiq alayhi salam left this world, I came and I visited HAMEEDA al-Musaffat, Ridwanullahi ta'ala alayha, HAMEEDA the pure. When I came to visit her, what? دخلت على حميدة أعزيها بأبي عبد الله فبكت وبكيت لبكائها. He said, when I saw her, she cried so much that I began to cry as well. HAMEEDA lost her beloved. HAMEEDA lost Imam As-Sadiq alayhi salam, yes. Then she says something of great importance. That is the main discussion of tonight's examination regarding HAMEEDA al-Musaffat. Please pay attention to what then she says. Many a times when we talk about the last moments of the life of the 6th Holy Imam, what do we say? We say he gathered his family members. Do you agree? This is a famous narration, yes. It's found in Wasa'il al-Shi'a. The person who narrated it was HAMEEDA, Ridwanullahi ta'ala alayha. Wallah, there are some individuals who have narrated gems when it comes to riwayat. May Allah bless the soul of Kumail ibn Ziyad. Today, we recite Du'a Kumail thinking it was a normal occurrence. But do you know how Du'a Kumail reached you and I? It was because Kumail ibn Ziyad has an interest by asking Amir al-Mu'mineen about this dua. Because on the eve of 15th of Sha'ban in Basra, Amir al-Mu'mineen gathers his companions. He says, there is a dua of Khidr. Make sure you recite this dua on a night like this. Everyone says, yes, yes. I've been in these situations. Sometimes you sit with Mu'mineen and they don't want to say they don't know. So they just nod their head thinking that it will pass. The companions of Ali did the same. Imam Amir al-Mu'mineen left. If they don't want the knowledge, he will go and sit next to a well and what? And indeed bring out the knowledge as he did, yes? He went back to where he was staying. Kumail ibn Ziyad comes, asks him, Ya Amir al-Mu'mineen, you said there is a dua. Tell me, what is this dua? He said, sit down. I will recite it for you. Allahumma inni as'aluka bi rahmatika allati wasi'at kulla shay. And Kumail would write this dua. Notice this dua, how important it is in the lives of human beings today. Millions recite it, isn't it, on an annual basis, on a weekly basis. Likewise, Hameeda narrates the following. She says, Ya Aba Muhammad, to Abu Basir, لو رأيت أبا عبد الله عند الموت لرأيت عجبا. She says to him, I wish you saw my husband at the moment of death. You would have seen wonders. فتح عينيه. He was unconscious. Then he opened his eyes. ثم قال أجمعوا كل من بيني وبينه قرابة. Gather everyone who is related to me. Everyone. I want a whole family here. Now, Imam As-Sadiq says. She then says, we did not leave anyone except that we gathered them. Then فنظر إليهم. He looked at them. فقال إن شفاعتنا لا تنال من استخف بصلاته. Our shafa'ah, he then looked at everyone, said, our intercession will not be attained by anyone who takes their prayers lightly. Imam As-Sadiq utilizes this moment. Everybody is in grief. They're losing their Imam. Yes, Imam is suffering with the poison. He's about to leave this world. Amata, a shaheed. Yet he says a monumental line. The same thing as his what? As his grandfather, the messenger of God, said also before he left this world. Yes, that whomsoever takes their prayers lightly will not be what? From amongst my ummah, or will not be amongst those whom is favored by me. Yes, the recognition is, Hameeda narrates this to us. And this is an important lesson that you and I take. Why? This taking salah lightly, what does it mean? Al-istighfafu bis-salah. What is the manifestation of taking this salah lightly? Because the Quran says, فَوَيْلٌ لِلْمُصَلِّينَ الَّذِينَ هُمْ عَنْ صَلَاتِهِمْ سَهُونَ. Surah Al-Ma'un, yes? Beware, woe be to those who take their prayers lightly. Somebody asks, what does Imam As-Sadiq mean when he says, we will not help those who take their prayers lightly? What is it demonstrated as? Number one, when it comes to this, it's when people ignore the time of salah. And they can pray without any excuses, they delay salah. Inna as-salata kanat ala al-mu'minina kitaban mawquta. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in the Quran says, there is a designated time for prayers. There are people, they're watching a movie, or they're watching something else, for example, or in their gatherings, and we all are, what? Unfortunately, is part of this. This is a direction to me first and foremost, and to all mu'mineen and mu'minat, yes? Those who take their prayers lightly, one of the applications is when they delay unnecessarily salah. We're told on the day of Qiyamah, the last of those who will be judged by Allah are the ones who delayed their prayers. They may wait for millions of years. Just waiting. On the mahshar, on the day of Qiyamah. They just wait. Allah says, you delayed prayers, today I'm going to delay you. Yes? That's number one. The other way in which people are neglecting or taking their prayers lightly is when they don't pray. They just miss prayers. Fajr is a common example. Yes. People staying up all night, and when it comes to what? Fajr, they're missing it because they're tired. Little did they recognize that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has made Fajr partly, or one of the reasons, is because He wants us to start our day with His remembrance. And that is a recipe for success. That's a recipe for well-being, yes, throughout that day, yes. وَقُرْآنَ الْفَجْرِ إِنَّ قُرْآنَ الْفَجْرِ كَانَ مَشْهُودًا. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says this is a moment where the malaika indeed are witnessing the performance of the Fajr prayers. And there are many ways in which you and I can utilize the month of Ramadan to ensure that if we're missing Fajr, we can start performing it, yes, and ensure that we continue this outside the month of Ramadan. A third way in which people become what? Taking prayers lightly is when they don't know the ahkam of salah, wudu, ghusl. What do you mean? There are those, Imam Al-Baqir alayhi salam says, they have prayed for 50 years, but not a single salah of them is accepted. فَأَيِّ شَيْءٍ أَشَدُّ مِنْ هَذَا. The narration says, what's worse than this? You've performed 50 years of your life salah and not a single one of them is accepted by Allah. Why? Maulana, I remember when I was in madrasa, I was told this is what we do. I'll give you an example. This is something I often repeat, so you may know already, yes? If someone comes to perform their salah and says the following, Allahu Akbar, their salah is batil, according to Ayatollah Sistani. say, what? I do this all my life. What is it that I've done wrong by saying Allahu Akbar? The wrong that you have done is you have to mention the Takbiratul Ihram in the correct way by saying Allahu Akbar. Allahu Akbar is wrong because Takbiratul Ihram is one of the 5 pillars of Salah, Arkanus Salah. You cannot remove anything or add anything to it, either by mistake or deliberately. You have to stand and say Allahu Akbar. Allahu Akbar means your Salah is void. If you do not read and equip yourself with knowledge of your namaz, your prayers, you're neglecting your Salah. There are those who believe that automatically they'll get the shafa'ah of Ahlulbayt on the day of Qiyamah. In a reliable, authentic narration, HAMEEDA, the great lady of Islam, tells us that her husband said, forget it, you will not get our intercession if you take your prayers lightly. Yes? And that's why it's of the utmost importance that we refresh our knowledge of ahkam on a continuous basis. Maybe ask someone, a learned individual, can you teach me? Yes, or let me pray in front of you and tell me if there is anything wrong in it or not. And the fourth manifestation of taking prayers lightly is not being in the state of khushu'. الَّذِينَ هُمْ فِي صَلَاتِهِمْ خَاشِعُونَ. The state of heart attentiveness. When an individual knows what they're saying, whom they're standing before. I give you this particular example. Do you know why we take salah as a burden in our lives? Do you know sometimes it feels heavy? Do you know why we're not that interested in prayers? The Quran tells us, subhanallah. Allah says, وَاسْتَعِينُوا بِالصَّبْرِ وَالصَّلَاةِ. Seek help through patience, which is known as fasting, yes, demonstration of it, and prayers. Why? Yes, because وَإِنَّهَا لَكَبِيرَةٌ إِلَّا عَلَى الْخَاشِعِينَ. Quran says it's burdenous, it's something too heavy, except for those who are humble in their hearts. We're not humble enough. And then the Quran says, الَّذِينَ يَظُنُّونَ أَنَّهُمْ مُلَاقُوا رَبِّهِمْ. Those who are humble are those who recognize they will meet Allah. Yes, of course we all recognize we will meet Allah, yes? But this meeting of Allah is what after death? That means we do not remember death enough. So the journey of Akhirah and the remembrance of death has a direct correlation with being humble, which has a direct correlation with our interest and khushu' in Salah. And this is an important lesson that is what brought forth for you and I to indeed apply into our lives. And that's why HAMEEDA was known as a reliable person. Why? Because Imam As-Sadiq left her as one of the 5 who would be his representative after his death. Because Mansur al-Duwaniqi said, kill whomsoever is the representative of Ja'far al-Sadiq. He said this to his wali in Medina, Muhammad ibn Sulaiman. He said, when Ja'far al-Sadiq dies, he will have a will. In the will says, this man is my wasi. Kill him. Imam Sadiq says, there are 5 of my representatives after me. One of them is Mansur. The second is the governor of Medina, Muhammad ibn Sulaiman. The third is Abdullah, my son. The fourth is my son Musa, Imam al-Kadhim. And the fifth is HAMEEDA. Mansur, when he got this, he was surprised. He said, I can't kill myself. Yes. Imam Sadiq noticed the ilm al-ghayb that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala had given him about what is going to happen. We are not told of the date of the wafat of this great lady, but of course she passed away after the martyrdom of Imam As-Sadiq, 148 after Hijrah, and indeed she is buried most likely in Jannatul Baqi', like Farwa Ridwanullahi ta'ala alayha, and many mothers of the Ahlulbayt. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala bless her soul and allow us to live our lives in accordance with many of her teachings and the teachings of the Ahlulbayt, salawatullahi wa salamu alayhim ajma'een. As far as the spiritual tip for tonight or this evening is concerned, people now are worried. They say, okay, I may have been the individual who has taken my prayers lightly. Is there a remedy in addition to correcting this? Yes. The remedy in the religion of Islam, and Allah is merciful. And if somebody, for example, had been performing his salah wrong because they were told wrongly, is different to the fact that they were lazy and did not find out about ahkam. One of the best ways to remedy our salah is through mustahab prayers, recommended prayers, nawafil. And amongst the best is salatul layl. Yes? Our ulama have said it is so highly recommended to perform namaz al-shab, and the month of Ramadan is a great time to start doing it if you haven't already done so. To the extent that our maraja', like Ayatollah Sistani Hafidhullah says, you don't need to wait till midnight. You don't need to wait too close to Fajr time. You can do your Salatul Layl after Salatul Isha, even when Salatul Isha is at 5 p.m. Is it 5 p.m. one day here in Vancouver? Or in London it is, yes? Even if it is so early, yes? If Salatul Maghrib and Isha is so early, you can do it straight after. Number one. Number two, you don't have to do 11 rakats. You could do 9, you could do 7, you could do 5, you could do 3, you could do 1. Number three, you don't have to do it standing up. You could do it sitting down. Number four, you don't have to even do it sitting down. You could do it lying in your bed. As long as you have wudu, you don't need to face the qibla. Number five, you don't even, if you've missed it, it's recommended to do qadha next day. You could be walking to work. You could be driving to work and performing Salatul Layl. Qadha. But just please make sure you pay attention in the roads. The idea that emerges is don't miss Salatul Layl. Namaz al-Shab. The sixth holy Imam says, Laysa minna man lam yusalli Salatul Layl. Anyone who does not praise Namaz al-Shab is not one of us. On that night, Shama Ghariba, Sayyida Zainab, al-Masa'ib sees all the calamities, yet she performs Namaz al-Shab. Yes? And so it's a great remedy for you and I, if unfortunately we've taken our prayers lightly, because we are told in authentic narrations, what corrects wajib prayers, recommended prayers. Subhanallah. How amazing is Allah. How merciful He is. Yes? That if we need help, there is the recommended prayers, nawafil, yes, which the 11th holy Imam says, one of the signs, 5 signs of the believers is what? The praying of the 51 rak'ats, isn't it? Yes, that is the 37 mustahab plus the 17 wajib. And the final element, and that's the fiqh recommendation, the fiqh tip, and that is with regards to fidya. Some of the elders here, may Allah bless them, and we should honor them, respect them, yes. This blessed center Az-Zahra has been here for 20 years. Much of it is due to their hard work and dedication. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala reward the elders and those who indeed still work hard to serve the community. They asked about fidya. An elderly person who cannot fast, yes, or it finds it difficulty or it's harmful for them to fast, should pay fidya, which is 750 grams of food, staple food, for every day that they miss. When should they pay this fidya? They have 2 choices. They can either pay it after the month of Ramadan or every day after Maghrib. Every day after Maghrib, they can pay the fidya, yes, to designated organizations. But fidya must not be payment. You should make the payment with the knowledge that they will use this to feed people, not give the money to the poor. Because there are some people who think it's like sadaqah. Yes, they say, I know some poor people, and fidya can only be given to 12 shi'as. Any wajib sadaqah must only be given to 12 shi'as. Yes, and it's not payment, it's food that must be presented to those individuals who are needy. May Allah tabaraka wa ta'ala accept your dua and your supplications and your salah and your fasting, and grant us tawfiq بحق محمد وآل محمد وبحق الصلاة على محمد وآل محمد.